Welcome to the Dirty Paws channel. I'm going to be unboxing and reviewing the Click and Play Military Campsite Playset. And the primary reason why I ordered this was to go with WPL hang-long trucks in the background here. Click and Play setups, they don't necessarily have the most detailed action figures in them, but they come with a ton of functional accessories. And this particular setup is kind of designed to be like an accessory to add on to existing like military base play sets. So everything's actually nicely packaged and pretty well kept apart. You don't get a box full of loose parts shaking around. For those not familiar with like G.I. Joes and all their clones, they are all roughly 1/18 scale, also sometimes called 3 3/4 inch tall figures. And these WPL RC cars that we got in the background here, they're approximately 1/16 scale. But if you've ever looked at like a 1/18 scale die-cast car, you'll notice that a G.I. Joe is quite a bit bigger than they are. That's because of something that we call scale creep or heroic creep, where in order to make the toys stand apart, they make them physically bigger and more heroic or intimidating looking. So this first bag has a couple of flak jackets in it made of rubber, this barbed wire fence, and admittedly this dog is one of the main reasons why I bought this set. A few of the AR-15 styled guns are in this bag as well, and this backpack radio, which one of the big differences between G.I. Joe type figures and these World Peacekeeper figures is that they actually use some elastic straps on them. So your figures don't have a hole in their back, and the backpacks actually look okay sitting down. Here's the 3 different AR-15 or M16 setups. Each one's a little bit bowed. They're not the greatest quality injection, but they can be easily fixed over a candle or a lighter or really hot water. This next bag has a bunch of crates, fire pit, and some of the tent parts, as well as the base for the barbed wire fence, which I don't think I mentioned before, but is kind of like a stretchy, rubbery plastic, probably TPU, like a cell phone cover's made out of. Now these tent frame pieces, I'm just going to say it right now, if you're buying this for a kid, you need to assemble these. Don't leave it up to the kids. They are fairly difficult to snap together, they're fairly small components, and once you do get them snapped together, the tent fabric is a really tight stretch onto it. It'll actually seem like it won't fit at first, but it will. If you have to, stretch the fabric onto it and then let it set aside for a few minutes. The fabric will stretch out a little bit, the plastic will give a little, and you can kind of adjust the fabric on there. That part I ended up doing off camera. So one of the things I didn't like about it is that they got this tag sewn right in the very opening of the tent. Take a really sharp hobby knife to it and cut it really close to the threads and just get it out of there. So the barbed wire fence just pegs into the base, real straightforward, simple little piece. These tables are war table and folding chairs. These are actually pretty common between all the different kits. The command base has like 3 tables and like 6 or 7 chairs, so each one of these kits you get can just add on to that. I tried to pose this Star Wars figure, but his joints are just not bendable. He's a great looking figure, but his joints just don't really move much. The table, kind of like the tent, it's a little hard to snap together, but mostly in the cross brace in it. It does actually snap together, trust me. Just keep pushing. Every single one of these crates that come in this kit, that all have removable tops. This one's a mortar case, so there's 3 little mortar shells in there that are all taped down. And most importantly, these 2 jerry cans. These are perfectly scaled for these WPL trucks. If you ever looked at real military trucks, you notice that they add on jerry cans anywhere they can bolt them or weld them on. A lot of these components I'll repaint to match the vehicles to kind of take the toy gloss off of them. There's 3 of these little boxes. Each one's got a removable top. You can stick stuff in them. And these tools. There's quite a few tool sets available for like 1/10 scale RC cars, but nothing really for these smaller vehicles. So these will be pretty much perfectly scaled to get strapped onto hoods and thrown into beds of some of these little trucks. I'm assuming this is the artillery launcher to go with those shells. And this is a little tiny ammo can, like a 9mm can. Even for the non-military trucks, like a lot of off-roaders really use these, so it wouldn't look out of place in the bed of the Toyota at all. There's a little bit of a burr on the bottom that needs to be shaved off, but no big deal. Some kind of bazooka. Another type of rocket launcher. These kits seem to be pretty fond of rocket launchers. A tea kettle. Something a little different. And a laptop. Kind of looks a little bit like a Toshiba Toughbook. Has some topography software running on it. You could just as easily take a screenshot of your own computer, print it out, shrink it down, glue it over the top of it. Camera refuses to focus on it, it's so small. And the cooking fire pit. I like this in the well in this kit because, well, they're not strictly military. They could be used in any kind of diorama for these smaller trucks. Some of the kits by this same company have like horses and camels in them too, so a lot of it's kind of desert themed, like this well. Not 100% sure that this is actually set up correctly the way it's intended to be, so I'll have to look that up later on and figure out how this string is supposed to be wound around this thing. It doesn't quite look right as it came in the box. And last but not least, the 3 figures that came in this box. They admittedly aren't the most detailed. They kind of have some dirt faces, but really, they're well painted. They're pretty well jointed. They're a decent action figure. Pretty basic. It'd be great for kids, but for me, there's more detailed figures out there, and I'm more about the scale model type building of this hobby. So I don't know that I'll be using them a whole lot, except for maybe as like additional troops in the background of pictures, or throwing a bunch of them in the back of like a armor personnel carrier set up in the back of the truck. Unlike my Star Wars figures, they actually bend. They have pretty good range of motion. And here we jump forward to a little scene I set up. As I said before, I set up the tent off camera. It does fit, just fiddle with it a little bit. The straps can actually be tied together behind the tent to hold the flaps all the way back. He's got these little pockets sewn in on the edges of it that hook over the frame. Really wish they hadn't sewn the tag up front, but oh well. It's a cheap toy. It's kind of what the hobby's about, modifying it all to make it what you want it to be.